Alrighty. Here we are in Culebra, Puerto Rico. Beautiful day in Culebra. Alrighty. Recording is good. We are ready to go. Check off our break. And let's go. I love flying this Kit Fox. It's a lot of fun. Tail dragger. Kind of a bush plane. Experimental kit built airplane. I got some clouds coming in from the west. You know what? I'm not going to go all the way down to the ends because this thing will take off in like 100 feet. So we'll just go here just to save some time. Alright, and been trying to adjust the sensitivity on my pedals, but let's see. See if I think there is also a bit of a crosswind too, but like I said, it takes off in like 100 feet or less, so no worries there. Yeah, terrain looks definitely a little bit different. I have a mod that I run occasionally. I've been kind of comparing the two. Right now, I'm just running the default scenery and texturing from Bing, or for Microsoft. Flight Simulator by default uses Bing Maps, Bing photo imagery. But there is a mod that I run that actually replaces the Bing imagery with imagery from Google Maps, which I find it to be, in most places, I find it to be very, a bit more realistic. I just think the quality of Google Maps is better. Yeah, I've flown over this a couple of times, this area a couple of times with using the Google Maps, and it definitely looks better with the Google texturing as far as the terrain goes and stuff. But either way, it still looks really good. So I'm just gonna do a flight in the pattern. Kind of give you a look from the air of the island of Culebra. It's one of my favorite airports to land in because you got to come in through the mountains, and it can be a bit of a tricky landing. The funny thing is that, and I'm sure they probably have one in real life, but they don't have a windsock. In Flight Simulator, they don't have a windsock, so it's hard to tell which direction the wind's coming from. Whether you have a bit of a tailwind or a crosswind or something like that. But yeah, check out the beach, the waters, the textures. It looks really good. But yeah, definitely the terrain texturing looks different with Bing than it did with the Google Map mod. I definitely like the Google Maps mod better. To me, it looks more realistic. This texturing looks really gamey, like real arcade-like. Some boats down there. Got one boat there heading right into that rain cloud. You know, fly here over Flamenco Beach. I remember flying this approach with old FSX, Microsoft Flight Simulator X. And while that was a great simulator in its time, compared to what this is now, was nothing close to what it was like. I mean, these mountains were pretty much like flat. There was really no three-dimensional aspect of it, although it was 3D. But the terrain mapping and everything was just completely unrealistic. And now these maps, you can see how the mapping, the 3D texturing and stuff, the 3D mapping of the terrain and stuff is all really realistic. Because if you've ever flown into Puerto Rico or into this airport in Culebra, you will recognize this approach as being very realistic. You fly right over Flamenco Beach, right through these two little mountains, and now it's easy for a small plane to come in here because these little small planes don't require a whole lot of runway. But when you get like a twin engine Otter coming in here, or a Britten Norman, as they tend to fly a lot, here, the passenger planes, I mean, those pilots really are experienced. You got to know what they're doing to come in here. Not bad, not bad. I do have a bit of a crosswind. Definitely, I can feel it from the left. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and taxi back to takeoff. Oh, look. Somebody put a sign right in the middle of the taxiway. I don't think that's supposed to go there. But yeah, I'm going to taxi back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the mod. I'm actually going to start the mod for the Google textures, and we'll see, because it'll be live. It'll start to load them in, and we'll see. You be the judge. It's a lot easier to taxi this thing when you're taxiing from Skyview overhead shot. Okay, let me remap myself. All right, so yeah, I had to. I went ahead and I enabled the Google texture mapping. So let's see how it looks. It should start to load up as we fly over, and it starts to load the scenery. And let's see if we can get a good takeoff here without being squirrely all over. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh my God. These rudder pedals are just so sensitive. Good Lord. All right. Yeah, so this area here hasn't loaded, or maybe it has. But you can see how the texture is different. See the trees and everything, everything just looks more realistic. It doesn't look so arcadey. See, you can see how over here in the distance on that other section, you can see whenever it starts to load in the maps and load in the pictures. And so, like, I fly over here. This is where my grandmother's house used to be. I mean, the house is still there, obviously, but it's been sold, so it's no longer my grandmother's. But that house right there, or that one there with the little house next to it. But see, I mean, the textures, it's kind of hard to tell. Has it loaded completely? You be the judge. I'd have to compare these two videos side by side to see. Assuming that it did. Now, I have found also with the Google Maps mod, that some areas, so you can see it starting to load here. You can see right here. You can see some areas just don't load. So, but as you can start to tell over here on the right, it loaded those textures, and that's the scenery. Over here on the left, I don't think it has loaded it. I think on this left-hand side over here, it kind of looks like it has loaded, but the rest of that just still looks arcadey like it did before. So I have also found, I forget where I was flying. I think I was doing a bush trip or something like that, where it just didn't look like it was loading. Like some blocks, you could see some blocks had loaded, some didn't. So it looks like that rain's moving away from us. Yeah, that island there just kind of looks the same as it did before. See, and you can kind of see right here, like center view, you can see where that's different than here. All this green. See, all this green and everything, that's not realistic. That's not all, But then down here in the end, I don't know what the heck's going on down here. This is definitely not right. That just looks like a bunch of blown insulation is exactly what that looks like. So something's not loading properly there. Google Maps has not loaded that properly. So yeah, I mean, it's not perfect. It does kind of depending on where you're flying. I think it's mostly dependent on the area and location. Some of it gets loaded, some of it doesn't. That's definitely not right. Looks like that part of the island has leprosy. But anyways, got my settings, got my VR running pretty darn good. Flying over the beach. See, here the beach, the sand and everything, to me that looks more realistic than what it looked like on Bing. And I don't know, maybe I'm not right, but I'd have to review the video again, but that just seemed more realistic sandy beach than. And then of course coming in here to this mountain, I can tell already immediately that how the terrain that's loaded is different than the first time we went in here. And drop one notch of flaps. See, another thing too is I don't remember seeing the road, because there is a road that goes through here over this hill here. And so you can definitely see already the terrain, and you can kind of see, I'm talking and trying to fly. You can see half of it's loaded, half of it hasn't loaded. See if I can get my crosswind landing here nailed. Keep it, hold it. All right. Well, that was much better than the first landing. But yeah, you can definitely see where, the difference, what's loaded, what hasn't loaded from Google. I mean, you can see here in Google, that just kind of looks a little parched, but then in the Bing, everything's like, oh, nice and green and everything, when in reality, it's not. In Culebra, especially in a drought, depending on when, these images were taken by Google. Because if they don't get a lot of rain and everything gets really dry and looks brown, there's definitely no. Now, if they get a lot of rain and everything, and it's a good rainy season, then yeah, then it can, then you see a lot of green on the mountainside and on the grass and everything. But if they haven't gotten a lot of rain, which I don't know what they've been doing lately, but all right. And here we go, and we are done. Hit my brake. Take a look outside. And this is Culebra Airport. And I'm flying my Kit Fox. Thanks for joining me.